All right, next it is time to catch up with Carly Krakow. And as you all know from earlier in this episode, Carly is a co-editor of the environment page on Jadalia, as well as the special projects managing editor for Jadalia. So, welcome, Carly.
No, I had you open in multiple windows, which is how much I love this show. So I
Oh,
could hear you at
sure.
different
Yeah.
points
How
in
many
the program.
windows? We need to know the number.
Well, it was definitely at least two here, and then there were other devices. There were phones involved. So I'm
That's
really good at it.
awesome.
That's called
That,
loyalty. Thank
absolutely,
you.
absolutely. My back's starting to hurt.
Me too, Alabama.
All right, so let's.
I'm
We'll
trying
hand
to
it
get
over to
work now.
Carly.
Okay.
Carly, it's all you. We're happy to have you again.
Thanks so much, guys. Yeah, great to be with you today. I think we were going to improvise a little bit because there was actually some breaking news regarding the ICC that I wanted to address. So before jumping into today's segment, we learned just this morning that the Office of the Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court has officially opened its investigation of the situation in Palestine after a series of developments, notably the recent decision confirming the court's territorial jurisdiction in Palestine. This latest step was expected, but as of today, the current chief prosecutor, Fatou Bensouda, released a statement confirming the official initiation of the investigation. And earlier you mentioned the Quick Thoughts piece by Artie Imsi, so we have that available for those looking for more background about the situation. But there will be much to discuss regarding this in the months ahead, and it will be very interesting to watch the U.S. response to this investigation. Remember that the Trump administration imposed sanctions on the chief prosecutor and another ICC official via an executive order. This was widely condemned as an abuse of power, but predating Trump across administrations, the ICC and the U.S. have not had a friendly relationship. The U.S. never acceded to the Rome Statute, which established the ICC. But I remember actually meeting Fatou Bensouda when in The Hague as a student in 2015 and asking her what would be happening next with the situation in Palestine. So that was almost 6 years ago. Yeah. So just to give a glimpse about how long this process has taken, obviously the blink of an eye in comparison to the entirety of the struggle for justice in this context, but still a long awaited development. Next, what I want to talk about is that there was a significant decision in Israel in February regarding what is referred to as the Yemenite Children Affair. And I want to start with a bit of background because while I know some of our viewers may be deeply familiar with this, there is a long, drawn-out history behind this decision. So just to give a short overview, a very large number of children from immigrant Yemenite Jewish families who were newly arrived after 1948 went missing. And the numbers range from 1,000 to 5,000 in terms of estimates about how many children precisely disappeared. But these children did not disappear. They were taken by the government of the state away from their families, who again were Mizrahi Jews from Yemen, and were placed with Ashkenazi Jewish or European Jewish families in many cases. Now, many of the families were told that their children had died, but that they could not see the bodies, and these bodies would not be returned to them, or that the children had been buried, but the families were not allowed to see their children who had supposedly passed away. So this new decision grants reparations for the families of 1,000 of these children, and the total amount is 162 million shekels. That's a little under 50 million US dollars. So that's about $50,000 per child. And there's two pay scales just below and a bit above this 50,000 number, depending on how much information was kept from the family and how much is still unknown about what exactly happened to their particular child. So on the one hand, we have finally an expression of regret from Israel and reparations, which when we consider the government's general attitude towards admitting historic and ongoing injustices is a pretty big deal. But 50,000 per child, per human being who was abducted and placed with a new family in so many cases, or who went missing with no information provided to their family as of today. Is that sufficient? Well, no, I don't think it's sufficient, but you don't need to take it from me alone. Many of the families, the parents who are still alive, and many of the NGOs and activist groups supporting them have said this is not enough. It's also widely thought the timing of this is quite convenient to place Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a more favorable light with elections coming up at the end of March. And we have to remember that this atrocity occurred, of course, just after the events of 1948, the Nakba, and the ongoing injustices against Palestinians, as well as in a context of widespread discrimination against Arab Jews. Ella Shohat has written prolifically about this topic in a wider context. Just another important example to mention besides the Yemenite kidnappings is the ringworm affair, when large numbers of Mizrahi Jewish people were treated with dangerous levels of radiation because they were suspected to have and to be spreading ringworm. So I think this is definitely not a final resolution for the families of these children, nor an end, of course, to these broader issues, but certainly a significant development to continue to follow. There are 3 evolving news stories in addition to that deeper analysis on the Yemenite situation that I think are worth keeping an eye on. More than 3 always, but with the time we have. So here's just a quick rundown of those. The first is that a German court has convicted a former Syrian regime officer for crimes against humanity, the first conviction of its kind. And this is a key development to follow, in part because of how in the international justice sphere, there has been a real lack of traction with accountability for war crimes in Syria, such as the failed attempt for the UN Security Council to refer the situation to the ICC. But will this conviction or others like it lead to accountability at higher levels of the regime? This is what remains to be seen. The second is the major oil spill off the coast of Israel, which has been deemed Israel's worst ecological disaster in history. And the spill has already started affecting Lebanon's shores, and the extent of the damage there is becoming increasingly clear with each passing day. The third item I wanted to address is the tragic news that 41 people drowned attempting to cross the Mediterranean, leaving Libya in an effort to make their way to Europe. And we are no longer, of course, at the height of the constant news coverage for the refugee crisis as we were in 2015 and 2016, but thousands of people have continued to drown while attempting to cross the Mediterranean in recent years, and that remains very much ongoing. So just bringing a bit of focus onto another issue that perhaps should be breaking news, but as we see with so many of these protracted situations, gets pushed further and further out of the headlines as time passes. So that is the main array of news developments I have for you. And hopefully you can still hear me, Simon. Okay.
Yes, we
Yes, we
can.
can. Yes, we
Yes, we
can.
can. We hope that nobody could hear us the last couple of seconds as we were trying to find a couple of buttons. But we have to explain why we're so close because...
Okay, so the camera, we have multiple cameras, but then when we split screen, the camera also splits screen.
And-
so, like, yes, I love the sound, but also we just have to be this close.
Yeah, you're getting too close. It's gonna get
It's
us
a little precarious on the elbows there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to say thank you so much, Carly. Every time we were just
We were
saying
just
that
saying
that every time you share these stories with us, it gives us this confidence boost that when we expand Live with ASI to different segments, this would be like an awesome standalone segment. And as some people know, but many don't, we're actually moving in the coming months to a format that is let's put it this way. It's going to be a broadcast channel where there'll be continuous broadcasting of live material and recorded lectures, segments such as this one, as well as conferences and panels and so on. So with this, Carly, we'll say goodbye
you.
and hope to see you, of course, next month again.
Bye, Carly.
Always great to be with you guys. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Carly always does such a great job of
Absolutely
elevating narratives that are not being shared in mainstream media, and I think that's one of the best parts.
All right, so let's see.